All right, welcome back. In case you're just joining us, it's time for us to delve into our conversation. At the beginning of the program, I did say I'll be looking at COVID-19 impacts on jobs. So many jobs have been lost, and some of those jobs have been lost permanently. They were lost because of the pandemic, and I must tell you that some have been lost permanently. My guest is joining me right now, Hilda Kragha. She's the Chief Executive Officer at Jobberman. Hello, Hilda.
Hi, Nancy.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well. How are you doing?
We're well, too. Hilda, are you in Lagos now?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
I live here.
Okay, so how is Lagos? Talk to me about Lagos, because that's the commercial nerve center of the country. That state, city, employs a lot of people, isn't it?
Yeah, I would say it's true. And I would say it's opened up the past couple of weeks. We moved from no cars on the road to more businesses opening up. Even just, as a business, a Jobberman, we saw that our customers have been more responsive since the 4th of May. So I would say there's a spirit that even though there's still lots of fear, and of course people are being conscious about the COVID-19 crisis, there's more, we're seeing more brave actions being taken and businesses beginning to open up, which is good news.
Which is good news. Now, the International Labour Organization, when I read the report, of course, during this COVID-19, they did say that the sharp decline in working hours globally will lead to about 1.6 billion workers in the formal economy, their jobs being threatened. And I think they went further to say about 190 million people will lose jobs in the world, that's globally. What's your take on COVID-19 impact on jobs? As the Chief Executive Officer of Jobberman, that is one company, that do placements and all of that. What's your own immediate assessment?
So I'd say, just based on the data we've been seeing, there's a dichotomy happening right now. If you look at the blue collar market, where jobs have not been dignified, they're not brought to light, and there's no structure around it, there's been a lot of job loss, and a lot of it is invisible because nobody's actually tracking blue collar workers and how their employment is evolving, right? And that's truly sad. I think one of the things we need to do better going forward is to dignify blue collar more. But on the other side, on the white collar side, what we've seen, at least on our platform, is that even though there's some industries that are being obliterated and jobs are disappearing at scale, things like the automotive industry, like oil and gas, we also have a lot of industries that are hiring. On our platform, for example, I think overall in the past 2 months, we had over 183% increase in job openings, a lot of them in the tech sector, a lot of them in sales and marketing. So a lot of them in fields that would not necessarily be affected by COVID, but rather that where opportunities were created.
So we're seeing a lot of openings in the sales and marketing as well as tech sector. I'll come back to that in a bit. How do you think that businesses, especially I know you interface with businesses that hire people, how do you think that businesses or enterprises facing the risk of serious disruptions now, how has it affected jobs? Because a company must be doing well to be able to hire.
Yeah, that's true. So there's a few things we've noticed. One, for the most part, employers in Nigeria are not yet letting go of at least white collar workers at scale. Typically, we've seen an increase in job seekers, but not as large. I think right now people are exploring furloughs and probably salary cuts before that one door shut where you let people go. We've seen that, and that's a good sign. On the other hand, we've also seen that people who had large-scale recruitment projects or programs to run by the end of the year have put them on hold because they don't know. There's uncertainty as to whether this project is going to go ahead as expected, if our revenues can support the new members of staff. So even situations where candidates had been already provided with offer letters, we're seeing employers say, first hold on, we'll let you know when we would like for you to resume, which of course destabilizes a job seeker. You've left your job maybe, or you're excited about finding a new job, and all of a sudden that job's not available to you anymore. So we're seeing that level of insecurity. However, for the sectors that actually need more staff, so as I said, tech sector, I think the medical sector as well, that we're seeing adoption of technology, so more people who traditionally not have used, let's say, Jobberman to hire, coming to our platform because it's an online way to have access to talent. And we're also seeing speed because for them in those industries, COVID has presented such an opportunity that they need to ramp up their hiring.
Okay, you said some things which are very vital, that especially even your last statement, that are you saying that perhaps there are more job opportunities now than before?
No, definitely not. If you're
No.
to net out the industries that have gained and those that have lost, I would not say. It's very, very clear who the winners out of this COVID-19. And for us as a platform, again, one of the things we did, of course, was to make our listings free, because we realized that even for those who might want to hire, say, in essential services or in the medical sector or even tech and logistics, they don't have a recruitment budget. When we did that, we actually saw an 183% bump in our listings. So we have more jobs on the platform now compared to, let's say, April last year. However, this does not account, of course, for the offline sectors, for the blue-collar workers. So I'm sure if we're to net it out at that point, of course, the number of job losses is greater than the new jobs coming online right now.
Why do you think that employers in Nigeria are not letting go quickly?
I think it's a combination of, being optimistic. Nigeria, we're serial optimists here. That's one thing. Second thing is, in some sectors, there's actually been regulatory movements to avoid layoffs. For example, in banking, right. I think there was a restriction there. And then also, I think fundamentally most employers, at least most employers in Nigeria, are honestly trying to do good by their staff. Even places where we've seen people laid off, we're seeing that they're keeping the medical cover, they're getting the right amount of severance pay. So generally, it's a crisis affecting everybody, and right now the goodwill of employers is shining through.
So are you saying that goodwill is so much in Nigeria? Because there are still some people too that have lost their jobs. Their employers have told them, just stay away because we're not making money. Some, they did not even notify them. Some, they've actually asked them, just stay away a bit. When the economic environment improves, would hire you again.
Yeah, I would say, of course, the intentions may be good for the most part. I choose to believe that for the most part, intentions are good. But at the end of the day, a business has to do what they need to do in order to survive, right? If I keep you on for 2 or 3 or 4 extra months, but it depletes our cash flow to a point where we can't even operate after COVID, that beats the whole point. So you have to understand that you might be the best employee, but given your company situation right now, you still are not able to keep your job simply because it's survival. Everybody right now is trying to survive. Most businesses are trying to survive. We're not getting supplementary, aid or cash injections from the government like in different countries. So right now, every country is trying to make sure that after this pandemic, they're still able to be competitive in the business, and that might include letting people go.
Now, from your last point, we know what is happening globally. Governments are also supporting businesses. Here in Nigeria is also the same, because the central bank, for example, through the National Microfinance Bank, has the 50 billion naira to support MSMEs. And you will agree with me that we have a lot of MSMEs in Nigeria. Micro enterprises are that provide about 84% of jobs and 96% employment. 41.5 million micro enterprises out of the 41.6 million businesses we have. So I guess that Jobberman is dealing with perhaps 100,000 left of the medium and the big businesses.
No, deal with everybody from businesses with 5 people to 10 people.
Oh,
to
really?
100.
So if I want to hire someone now, you can get me on a platform to hire someone.
Exactly, and by the way, it would be completely free.
Okay.
So especially for a small business, like Jobberman we spent a lot of time innovating for products that are affordable enough for small businesses. So everybody can recruit on Jobberman right now.
Okay. So where I was going to actually is the assistance for businesses, like we've seen in other countries. There's a 50 billion naira targeted credit facility for households and small businesses. Small businesses, I think, can access up to 5 million. There are also other intervention programs across the medical, pharmaceuticals, hospitals, and all of that. There's a 100 billion naira facility for that. How do you think that all this can really impact the job market? Perhaps those businesses that have laid off workers can rehire them again, or ask them to come back or hire new staff?
Yeah, I think a number of ways. Of course, definitely, if you don't have to do layoffs, you won't do layoffs. If you can even hire more, well and good, so your projects can go on and economic activity is stimulated that way. But even more importantly, for some businesses, it could be the kind of stimulus that helps you support remote work, right? It's going to be a while before we can move freely, before we can all be in the office freely. And in the meantime, small businesses need help to navigate this remote situation. If we think about, for example, our infrastructure, power is not the best here. Data is expensive. If you want your staff to work safely in a remote environment, you kind of have to facilitate these aspects of it. And such interventions for government would help small businesses, give them the capital, or at least the means to do this and support their staff.
Hilda, still talking about government and what government can do. What do you think can be the urgent policy responses, apart from what I've talked about, that government can do to help businesses? Because if they help businesses, definitely the labor market will be assisted.
Yeah. I think a few things we can do. First of all, just in terms of labor market, one of the things we can do, and which is what we're fighting for, is more transparency in the job space. Right now, there are lots of open jobs, but then clearly, because we don't have a history of hiring transparently, it means that some opportunities are sitting uncaptured by young people, even by just job seekers. So there needs to do a lot more around saying, okay, fine, we know right now there is a labor crunch, but here are all the jobs available. A single source of truth where anybody who's looking for a job can access that. And at the same time, employers can actually reach out to talent in a technologically driven way. That's one thing. The second thing is, I think, especially for small businesses, there has to be a conversation around tax relief, or around like relief from levies. Right now, not much is coming in, and yet there's still some core expenditure. For a large company, for a multinational, this is something they can, they've accounted for. But for very many small businesses who work on, I think on average, some research has been done that small business in Nigeria, the micro business is talking about, on average, they are keeping around 21 days of cash. For business like that to survive, we need to go beyond just, a credit facility, etc. We need to also reduce the obligation on them to pay out money to the government or to state governments in forms of taxes. Maybe, I know that they've already delayed like tax returns, I think, in Lagos State for a couple of months, but even just the percentage they're paying could be helpful. Because if you're going to wipe out a small business's entire reserves because of taxes, and again, that also beats the point.
Are you noticing that perhaps the stay-at-home and work economy has also increased? You understand? I don't know if you have such, yes, on your platform, whereby stay-at-home and work economy has also increased. Are they also hiring people that will work remotely? You understand what I mean in terms of virtual spaces? Now, I don't even need to have an office, but I'm a company, but I'm stay-at-home and work company, and I'm hiring people that are working remotely.
So we've seen an increase in remote work, definitely. So some of them are contractors, some of them are permanent staff. And the thing is, for the most part, it could be new businesses altogether, but also it's businesses who, because of certain circumstances, have no choice but to onboard people remotely. I mean, I'd love for you to be in the office with me, but then we need to get this started, and you have to join today, not tomorrow. And so the result of that is you onboard staff remotely. This has implications for performance management. It has implications for staff morale, but we're seeing a rise in it. Of course, if you're looking for a graphic designer right now, there's no need for them to come to your physical premises. So remote work is on the increase. And also we're seeing more field work. So field agents, a salesperson doesn't have to go to the company all the time, or a marketing person who spends time mostly in the field, because this is independent work as well and doesn't necessarily require a physical space where people meet every day.
How do you think that this, the COVID-19, is it really a catalyst for the reinvention of work in Nigeria or even globally? And if it's a reinvention, is it temporal, or is it just going to be permanent? So I've asked you 3 questions now.
Yeah.
God help you.
It's fine. I'll say globally, yes, but it's going to take a while before the trend actually filters down to Nigeria, and I'll tell you why. Our infrastructure is not built up to enable remote working at scale. For the average person in Nigeria does not switch on a generator when electricity goes, which means that for a huge part of their day, they would end up being unproductive. The average person does not buy more than 1 GB of data a month, if at all, which means if they have to be, on Slack and on Zoom all day, they'll be unproductive. So what's going to happen is that for most small businesses, the easiest way, the most cost-efficient way for them to operate is actually in a physical space. I believe that most of our businesses are going to revert to that. There will be a subsection, though, where maybe, especially in the larger businesses, where conversations had been happening around, let's say, flexi hours, but the company wasn't sure. Now this COVID-19 lockdown has forced them to experiment with flexi hours, and guess what? Nothing broke down. So they'll be able to embrace that more. You'll find, as opposed to, let's say, 1 day a week, 1 day a month remote, people are doing 1 day a week, 2 days a week. I think we're going to see a lot more of that, but that's in more structured businesses and not in the small companies.
How do you think that employers, what are employers thinking about remote work now? Is this something they want to continue? Just dovetailing from what you've said, perhaps 2 days remote work, 2 days in the office or thereabout. How are employers taking that? They've not been able to adapt, or it's because of coronavirus pandemic, we just have to adapt by force, You know,
Yeah.
so how are they taking it?
For a lot of people, it's actually adopting by force. Even now, because going back to work, you have to do it in shifts. So you're having, batch A, batch B, batch C in the office. And that's not something employers necessarily want. But then because of the situation, you have to adapt to it. Because of that, we're seeing different ideas come out on, for example, how do you maintain staff morale, right? Because if you don't have your people in a physical space, they could just drift. How do you do performance management? How do you measure output? How do you measure productivity? These are big questions that, depending on the size of your company culture, your business, are going to take a while to answer. So while we figure it out, I think for most businesses, actually, it's just literally waking up every day and trying to hold your company together, make sure people are doing the work they're supposed to do, making sure they're productive in the best way possible, and facilitating that.
So it means companies are taking it one day at a time, because we've not really seen this pandemic before. That's like in modern day history. All of us are getting used to it. So perhaps companies are just taking it one day at a time, renovating, reimagining their businesses as they go on. The next question for you is that what changes? Okay, you want to say something?
I was saying, except like for tech businesses, for example, who are used to this, working remote, working seamlessly, software developers, people who have been at home this whole time. So for them, it's business as usual.
Oh, it's business as usual. What changes are on the job and workspace right now in terms of perhaps employees? What kind of skills should employees begin to have due to the new normal that COVID-19 has forced on us?
I'll put it in categories, right? So for the young people, I would say invest in a hard skill that you can layer with digital and soft skills that can link you to a market. Right now, it's easier to actually just study to be a tailor, start your fashion business, go on Instagram and begin to sell, that it might be for you to get a 9-to-5 job if you've just left university. That's the truth, because unemployment is at 23.1%, which means the opportunities are not, in white collar work especially, are not that common. So I'd say that's the advice for a fresh graduate. For people who have been in the workplace already, I would say two things. One, you need to be adaptable. Right now, your job description from last year may no longer be relevant. The focus of your company and the unique situation will call for you to do either more than what you previously were doing, or even something different altogether. And if you want to survive in your environment, you need to be able to adapt. The third thing is soft skills. I think for us, some of the research we've done at Jobberman, we discovered that soft skills are the largest gap that most employers have. Somebody have a first-class degree, but actually can't express themselves. They can't create a great presentation. They don't have workplace etiquette. And if you want to be successful in the workplace, this is increasingly important.
Okay, we will take a break shortly, and when we come back, we'll continue the discussion. But just before we take a break, let me ask you this question, Hilda. Hilda, are you still there? Okay, we've talked about perhaps skills that employees need to have. Are there things that you're also seeing from management and leadership that is changing due to COVID-19 pandemic? Things or strategies that are changing, management strategies changing that will definitely impact hiring of employees?
Oh, definitely. Should I answer that now or after the
Yes,
break?
yes. Answer right now.
Okay, so I would say, of course, we're seeing change patterns. One, there's a lot more empathy because not everybody's situation is the same. Your staff are working at home with their children, with their parents. You have to actually empathize with the situation. This means the way you manage them is going to be different. We're seeing a move away from the micromanagement style where you want to know what everybody's doing every given minute, to a more output-driven style where you say, if we agree that you're going to submit this deliverable by 4 p.m. today, I want to count on you to do it. This means that as managers hire, increasingly they're going to look for people who are self-starters, who can self-supervise and self-manage, and who are reliable. Because if I can't see you, if I'm not there to ensure you're going to do what you have to do, I need to trust that you're going to do it to a certain ability.
Okay. Hilda, let's quickly take a break. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation on COVID-19 and jobs. If you have your questions, please do send them now. Buzz me right now on Twitter at Nancy Ilo. You can also send us a message or your question at Moneyline TV on Twitter. You can go to Facebook Moneyline TV. You can find us on all our social media platforms. Send us your questions and your comments right now so that Hilda can answer. Let's quickly take this break. We'll be right back.
The latest GDP report, the service growth, the growth of the information and telecom sector went down from 10% last quarter to 9% growth rate last quarter. And that's one of the biggest growth drivers in our economy. So supporting those sectors and making sure that as soon as, the world opens up again after the pandemic, we are able to react quickly and basically capitalize on some opportunities that are available, that will be available after the pandemic. So I don't think it's the time to slash budgets. And I do think it's time to borrow. But I think, first of all, we should be borrowing wisely and trying to get the best interest rates we can. And second of all, we should be deploying those funds wisely, not using them to defend the Naira from devaluation, not using them to support fuel subsidies, but actually using them in ways that will actually grow the economy or prevent important, crucial, critical sectors from collapsing.
All right, welcome back to the program. Hilda Kragha is still with me. She's the Chief Executive Officer at Jobberman. When I was taking a look at what, would I call it a report now? I saw what you guys put out, that Jobberman saw 70% decrease in job listings because of the economic lockdowns. What's the situation right now?
So initially we saw a 70% decrease. I think the first week of lockdown, we literally, everything just plummeted. And I think that's because initially there was that shock, business literally ground to a halt. But then we did two things. So one, we decided to remove the barrier of cost to the platform to say, okay, fine, if everybody's now rationing their budgets and then have recruitment spend necessarily, let's make our offering, at least our listing, free. Because for us, the most important thing was how can we support our clients right now? This seemed to be the best way. So after doing that, we actually realized over the next couple of weeks or so that the listings began to rise again. And right now, we're into a place where, as I mentioned earlier, we're almost at 183% higher than what we were before. But it was that initial shock that froze recruitment completely.
Mm. You talked about earlier some specific roles that we're seeing right now. I want us to break it down. You did also mention, I'll come to the blue-collar economy in a bit and why we're seeing what we're seeing right there compared to the white-collar economy. But just take me through some of the specific roles that we're seeing an increase in right now. I know you mentioned sales and marketing earlier and jobs around technology. Expatiate on that.
Yeah. So we've had lots of software development jobs, for example, IT support roles, all these jobs that would, of course, naturally, there'll be a boost if more people are using online tools. That was almost 18% growth. We also had a huge growth in business development and sales. I think that 62% of our roles were coming from those sectors. And that's also natural. In a situation where revenue is getting harder to bring in, of course, you're going to boost your sales team in a way, because sales teams typically earn a lower salary and work off commissions. So it's a win-win for the company as well. So we've seen that grow a lot. We've also seen, so if you just break down the tech some more, graphic design, digital marketing, data analytics, all that is on the increase as well, and has grown over the past few months.
Does that mean that these sectors which you've mentioned now, are they where job opportunities are right now in this new normal? So for someone watching us right now, should they go acquire skills in that area because that's what the new normal is forcing on the economy right now? Or should they just wait on this pandemic that it will go in the next 1, 2, 3 years and we're back again to normal? But how would the person even survive though?
So the thing is, I don't think that this is necessarily the jobs the new normal, because this is still almost crisis mode, right? We can't say we are post-COVID pandemic yet. Because the jobs are right now in a time of crisis where not many people are spending money or not many people are recruiting. These are roles people want. However, I think about the new normal just going to be life post the lockdown. I think a lot of opportunity lies in technology. A lot of opportunity lies in the ability to connect offline hard skills to online marketplaces. Hence my example earlier about people in the creative sector. That's where opportunity lies. Unless you're really passionate about these areas, don't go changing your life plans and investing a lot in them, because these are crisis jobs. These are crisis jobs. Even if we're to look, in August this year, I can almost guarantee that this profile will have changed. Even without COVID-19, typically in Nigeria, we find that different jobs are booming at different times. The recruitment cycle for almost every single industry. So it's not the best way to judge these jobs, crisis jobs, if I can call them that, as what's going to be happening a year, 2 years, or 3 years from now.
Do you think that as a country we've been able to decipher the scope of this pandemic? Because as a country we're struggling with 23.1% unemployment rate, a 40% or 40.1% poverty rate, with about 82.9 million poor people, according to the NBS, excluding Borno State. I always like saying that because Borno is not part of that survey. So do you think that we've been able to understand the scope of this pandemic and what the impact will be on the unemployment rate, which is at 23.1% for young people now? So will it impact it more short to medium term?
I don't think we've even gotten to, the half of it. And I don't think any country in the world has, right? So everybody's trying to figure this out at the same time. If you think about it this way, we are, the summer is almost here, so the end of the school year, we're receiving another wave of thousands and thousands of freshmen. They're graduating to a market with no jobs, with barely any jobs. So on top of the job losses that happen in the experienced market, in the experienced employed labor market, there's fresh graduates coming in, and there's fresh graduates who, still hadn't gotten jobs. We find that on average, some people, it takes them almost a year, sometimes 2 years to find a job post-graduation. So already have a backlog when it comes to job creation in the country. This COVID-19 crisis is only going to make that worse. I don't think we've seen the half of it yet.
Now, the question also, do you think that sufficiency of competence is also an inhibition? Because a lot of people also say you are the chief executive officer of a job listing company, Jobberman, for crying out loud. So you should be able to tell me this. What problem do we have? Do we have many jobs but fewer people? Yeah, you know where I'm going. But fewer people to fill that space because they do not have those competencies. So tell me now, let me hear it here, because I always hear it all the time that, oh, there are many jobs, but Nigerian graduates are unemployable. Or, we have literates. We have so many people that have the skills, but no jobs. So which one is it?
So I would say I get this question a lot, and I really don't like it, but I have a standard answer for it. Here's the thing. For people, especially young people, to have access to dignified livelihoods or work, 3 things have to happen together. 1, we need to have strong and relevant education and training systems that can get people ready for work. 2, we need to have democratic access to jobs so that everybody can see what opportunities are out there, and the best person can get the best role, can get the right role. 3, we need strong private and public sector markets that are actually creating opportunities for these people and creating the jobs or going to even facilitating entrepreneurship opportunities. In Nigeria today, there's leakage, it's broken. All those 3, there's something broken along all those 3 aspects. Our education system is not, top best in the world necessarily. We see lots of graduates that graduate, you're a first-class degree holder, you can't even write a CV. That's just a fact. 2, we don't have democratic access. Less than 30% of jobs in Nigeria today are filled transparently. Mostly, there's lots of nepotism happening. There's lots of, hiring my friend's son because at least I know he needs a job and things like that. So the best person doesn't get the best job, which means you could be smart, but if you're not doing the right job, you won't be as productive in the workplace and people might call you unemployable. Then third, of course, is a strong public and private sector markets. And given that, our rate of our population growth rate has been growing higher than GDP growth rate, of course there's going to be an issue on the job creation side. So it's not fair to address Nigerians as unemployable when there are challenges across all these things. What we need to do is to come together and say, okay, how do we fix each of these 3 elements? And I'll give an example. For example, with Jobberman, on the training, we've decided that we're going to invest in soft skills. We have a soft skills curriculum that's free for everybody to take up because it's a huge gap. We can't do all the technical training and we can't change curriculums, but that's something we can do. On democratic access, that's literally how our platform is built. We are a marketplace that links the best talent to the best employers. And we try to make sure jobs, we've got a database of 2.5 million job seekers and 60,000 employers. We try to make sure jobs go out as far and as wide as possible. And then, of course, on the employer side, on the public and private sector market side, we're constantly engaging with employers, creating innovative products for them and saying, guys, recruiting transparently is the way to go. And wherever there are jobs, we need to make sure that as many people have access to them as possible. But again, until those three aspects are completely fixed, we really shouldn't be calling people unemployable.
I think you just succinctly put that, because the processes are already broken. What challenges do employers tell you they face, especially from those they hire from you over time?
I think the most common one we saw, again, was this around soft skills, was the big one. The second thing was something around just workplace readiness. So, you know, and I won't blame them. If I think about it, there are very few universities in Nigeria that have career services, which means people going to university or going to higher education institutions, but not getting the career guidance it takes to help you transition from school life or from an educational system to the workplace system. And we get that feedback a lot, that these young graduates, they're not ready for work. Either it could be dress code, it could be attitude, it could be so many other soft things, that because there's a gap when it comes to career guidance as you come up through the system, you go to the workplace and you're shocked, your employer is also shocked.
You just made a very salient point, which I don't think we're taking seriously, the career guidance system, isn't it? Are there other climes where this is also practiced? Because just like you said, a lot of graduates or people that are unemployed now will want to get the next job. But are they ready to be able to integrate into that job? You know, just as one can even say as simple as a dress code or as simple as an attitude, you know. Yeah. But those are soft skills that you need. So how essential is that career guidance system? And where should it come from? You know, is it you understand what I mean?
Yeah, it's absolutely essential. And if you think about it, like private universities in Nigeria actually have, like a place like Covenant University, you know, you have a dress code to go to the classroom, you have to put on your shirt, you have to dress like you're going to work. They do have those services, but most public universities don't necessarily have that. So the difference in access already, if you go to a private school, you're better off than if you go to a government school. I believe that ideally it should sit somewhere within the university system, but that's not possible. One of the things that we've done, again, on top of a soft skills curriculum, I think pre-COVID, we're also holding career fairs, like having these employability trainings with young people. You know, how do you dress up to go to work? How do you do a business presentation? Of course, now we've scaled it up. We've already trained 15,000 people, but it has to, if it cannot be housed within the education system right now, it could be housed through partnerships. So working with a particular university to provide these services to their final year students, for example. A lot of NGOs right now and multilateral organizations are investing in this work, school to work transition space. And this is one of the things that can be an area of focus.
You also said something that perhaps you see a first class graduate not able to write a CV. I've seen that a couple of times. And, you know, when I see it, I'm like, why is it like that? But you've actually did mention the challenges across those three areas, talking about education, the democratic access to jobs, and the role of the private and public system. Now, the other question, which I'll go back to, is the blue-collar economy. We've seen, which jobs do we even have more in Nigeria, the blue or the white?
Of course, blue.
Blue.
In most economies, it's blue, pretty much in every economy.
So why are we seeing that deficiency here in Nigeria around that blue-collar economy? You know, because just like from... Okay, go ahead.
Part of it is the fact that in Nigeria and in most African countries, blue-collar work has not been dignified. Everybody who wants their child to be a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, nobody wants them to be an AC technician or a cleaner or a nanny. And here's the thing, if you go to countries where blue-collar work has been structured and dignified, it's actually very expensive. If you want to get a plumber in London, they're going to charge you by the hour. And by the time your job is done, you'll have paid them almost half your salary, because that's how structured the blue-collar industry has become in such areas, right? In our case, because of this mindset, everybody underlooks blue-collar work, and yet they're completely essential. They're completely essential, and they're a way to earn a good living. If you speak to somebody who has a good career as an AC technician, they could be making more money than an entry-level, HR associate in some cases. There's a lot of potential when you think about the carpentry industry, you think about the clothing industry, the food and agriculture industry, and a lot of all these other blue-collar roles as well, right? There's a lot of potential there, but we need to work on the mindsets first. The fact that not everybody in Nigeria is going to be a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, an accountant. You might end up being a plumber, and that's okay. This is how you can define your career path. This is how you move from an entry-level plumber or from an apprentice to having a team that works with you to building a business out of it. We need to be able to meet blue-collar workers at that point of need and help them structure that out as well. If we've got that structure and those protections in place, then one, it's easier to command a higher value for their work, and two, in situations like this where there's a crisis, it's actually much, much easier to track just the number of job losses and what we can do to also intervene in the blue-collar market.
Who should bring that change? Because I like what you said in terms of we should also dignify blue-collar job. You go abroad, you see those in blue-collar, they earn, and it doesn't matter. They would start from their young age and they'll go on like that. They train their children, they are riding nice cars and all of that. But here in Nigeria, we look at them as menial jobs. So whose responsibility is that to change that mindset, to change the system, to give it a kind of structure for the blue economy to transition from what we're seeing it right now? To say it's okay if you are a plumber, it's okay for you to be a carpenter, and you shouldn't be looked down on. That if you're a carpenter, or even if you're a cleaner, you're a roadside sweeper, you can still train your children, you ride the best of cars. So how do we get to that level? Whose responsibility is that?
So I think there's a policy responsibility which would come like from government, of course, right? There's something around like, maybe this is for NGOs, which is around mindsets, educating parents, especially because sometimes you might want to be a tailor and your mom says, no, I want a doctor. So there's that mindset shifting which has happened both for the parents and the children. And then finally, of course, there is something around, which is a partnership between people like Jobberman, for example, and the government, which would verify these workers. One of the biggest risks around blue collar is the fact that people say, I don't know who's coming to my house, you know? So if we had a system that could actually verify and say, this person is who they are, they were trained in this, let's say, technical institution, and you kind of have like a bio about them, and it creates comfort or like a sense of trust, that would be a first step. So there's still roles for every person to play. The government, the private sector, us who would use those blue collar workers as well, you know, individuals, and then platforms that could still increase access to jobs and disseminate blue collar jobs to the workers as well.
You can imagine.
Course,
okay, go ahead.
It would require different thinking. If you want to do blue collar, for example, which is something we've been thinking about, it's not going to be online. Most likely it's going to be USSD. Best case scenario, it's WhatsApp, because lots of blue collar workers won't be as sophisticated or have sophisticated tools to let them access heavy websites all the time. So it requires difference in thinking as well.
You can imagine if you tell your mom or your dad, Dad, I want to be a sophisticated carpenter. Or I want to be like, what? You say what? Go to school first or something. You know, I want to be a tailor. Just go to school first. When you finish, you can come back. Because we've seen a lot of children or a lot of people, you know, they finish studying law, they are singing. You know, they finish doing this, they're doing that. You know, so so it's
No, I was going to say a good real life example of dignifying not blue collar work, but you know, that's happening right now is I think a partnership between the Lagos State Employment Trust Fund and the Nnaji Academy. You probably haven't heard of them. The Nnaji Academy actually takes ladies and trains them in housekeeping and child rearing, you know, how to handle medicines, how to do a balanced diet, everything. And because of that, these nannies are able to attract a premium salary on the market, right? So you find somebody actually making a decision to be a career nanny because they've gotten the right training, they've gotten the right role, they've got career progression, and they're actually earning more money than they would in an office. That's like a small pilot, but imagine if you could scale that across different industries, across different job roles, and just bring that same level of credibility.
What would you tell people that have lost their jobs right now because of coronavirus pandemic or are unemployed? What would you tell them?
I'd say don't take it too personally. It's possible you did your best at your job and you still lost it, not because of what you did, but because of the situation the employer is in. What you need to do now is, first of all, invest in yourself. So if you've been thinking about learning a particular new skill, if you want to do something in your area, learn it now that you've got the time, and then activate your network. Be clear about what you want to do, and then reach out to the kind of people that could help you. It might be a long ride because there's not, you know, this is not like the most not the most conducive market for a job seeker. But if every single day we take one small step towards your dream job, you'll get there. Reach out to a contact, send your CV in, sign up to Jobberman. There's lots of jobs on the platform. Take a soft skills training. You know, ours right now is running and it's free, but then you can do another training. LinkedIn has lots of learning courses as well. The most important thing, one of the biggest things about job loss is the depression it brings. You're coming from a situation you've been earning and you're self-sustaining, and that's been stolen away from you. Things like investing in yourself academically or learning actually help to stimulate that depression away. But if you sit down and feel sorry for yourself, it will make matters worse for you.
What are recruitment did I say that word? Recruitment, okay. Recruitment agencies such as you or, you know, companies, what are the top 3 skills they're looking for? When they tell you, yes, or companies, like, these are the top 3 things we're looking for. That is, I'm talking about a survey. What are the top 3 things they're looking for? Is it in terms of educational skills, in terms of perhaps some soft or hard skills? You know, what are they looking for?
So I'd say hard skills, I'd say definitely digital skills. You know, everybody needs somebody who can use a computer, have introductory knowledge of Excel, PowerPoint, the tools. You need to be able to do that. That's the first thing. Soft skills are a big one. You can't navigate the workplace successfully without soft skills. That's a fact. The third one, which I hate to say, but it's the truth, is experience. A lot of employers just want some experience. Training budgets for most companies are not that large. So even when they're asking for entry-level jobs, they're still asking for 2 years of experience because everybody's looking for something that's slightly pre-baked, somebody who knows what to do, as opposed to a fresh graduates. Of course, the larger companies keep hiring fresh graduates, but smaller businesses expect that even somebody who's just coming in fresh should have an idea what they want to do. So unfortunately, experience is something they're looking for. And if what that means for you as a young job seeker, as a fresh graduate, is find ways to boost your CV. You can do, if you can afford it, do an unpaid internship, do an apprenticeship, look for, you know, work projects you can do, and just try and fill out your CV with at least bits of work that you've worked on.
I was coming to that for perhaps young graduates or people that are freshly, or people that do not have experience. There are ways by which they can gather experience, just like you said, internship. You know, they can also do volunteer services and all of that and add it to their CV. They can also look for mentors, isn't it, to mentor them?
And even just the way you think about work, right? You find lots of people who say, I don't have work experience. But guess what? Your mom has a shop. You've been keeping her books. You've been doing inventory. You've been actually taking care of the shop, you know? That is work experience. And we have to let young people know that every single piece of work you've done counts. You've done, because there's skills you've learned. If you've been taking care of your parents' shop, for example, you know bookkeeping, that's a solid skill. You know customer management, you know inventory taking, those are solid skills, but we tend to overlook them because they happen in informal settings. All these are actually apprenticeships, and you think about it that way, a lot of young people have opportunity for apprenticeships. People work with their uncle with a garage over the holidays. People might do agricultural deliveries or something like that. So many pieces of exposure to work that we ignore because it's not in a big company or because it didn't get a salary. And we need to be able to structure that and also present it as work we've done in our careers.
Yes, you should also be able to be knowledgeable to present that as a work experience in your CV, isn't it? Let's take a look at this as we finalize the program. As employers are going to be coming back to work and their employees coming back to work, the question is, how do you handle COVID-19? Should employers test their employees? Have those kind of questions, you know, started around reopening of the economy or reopening of jobs? Should they test their employees? And even if you test, if it's positive or negative, doesn't guarantee that the person cannot contract it again tomorrow. Yes. Yeah.
So some people are considering testing, but I've not seen that a lot. And there's some companies actually offering tests. I think there's one, Mobi Health, which is a telehealth company, offering testing for all employees. But then more important, I think what's more important is to have like one clear communication on what going back to work means. How are you going to be transported to work? Are you giving your staff masks? What's the rule for wearing masks? Where does everybody sit? What percentage of your workforce comes on a given day? What we're doing at Jobberman is that we've got 3 batches. So we've got batch A, batch B, and batch C. Batch A and batch B will alternate in 2-week periods. So 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. That way, in case you're sick, you've got enough of a quarantine period for us to find out, right? And then batch C consists of either parents of young children or school-going age who can't leave yet, people who live very, very far away and have to take a lot of public transportation in order to get to work, or people who for some reason just feel like right now they'd rather be working from home, and those people will stay remote for the foreseeable future if that's their preference. So if you're an employer thinking about it, think along those areas. How do you protect your people? Have the sanitizers in place, have temperature checks, avoid food caterers, let everybody bring their food, you know, and wipe down the microwave after you use it. You have to think about that entire spectrum of possibilities and then over-communicate to your staff about it so that everybody knows what the plan is.
Thank you very much, Hilda. I think we've had an extensive discussion. Yes, tell me,
thank you.
Isn't it extensive across board? So I hope that our viewers have been able to take 1, 2, 3 things out of this interview. Thank you very much, Hilda. I'll speak with you again sometime. I'm just a phone call away. All right, that's the much we can take. I've been speaking with Hilda Kragha, who is the Chief Executive Officer at Jobberman. We've been looking at perhaps job opportunities, and I hope you took some things away. It's not only the pandemic or the negative side we'll be looking at.